What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube, our Wednesday afternoon show presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. If you are feeling down on Michigan State football, disheartened by the Tigers, worried that winter's coming, have no fear. Muskox is here for you. You will look and feel your best this fall and winter with Muskox flannels. Go to gomuskox.com. Get yourself a quality Muskox flannel. You'll feel the difference. You'll look your best. Look at Jason and I. Like we are hideous MFers, is our friend James Edwards would say. And yet, we pull it together. We have wives. We have lives only because of Muskox. GoMuskox.com, where the promo code Peacock can get you $15 off a Muskox flannel. And we'll talk more about the Muskox Ugly Man, Ugly Person contest that we're doing a little later. Jason, what did we miss?
Oh, fuck.
You get tired.
Fuck this game recap. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that out loud? 3, 2, 1.
We're dropping MFers now?
Hey, man. We didn't miss much.
No, I didn't think so.
Just a colossal bunch of shit that happened. Hold on, I got to play this thing. Yeah. We're caught. I got to say, the thing that stuck with me, this whole, the trip back from Denver, I was like, I cannot believe Penn State fired James Franklin.
Yeah.
In the middle of the season. Something that we thought couldn't happen. But it looks like you know something over there. Do you know something?
I know something?
Yeah.
I know very
little.
Is
Juice coming? Is Juice coming to this program? Are we going to have some juice in this program?
Are you asking
if Max Bulla is the head coach, can we ask him about the Rose Bowl?
Who would you rather have, Max Bulla or James Franklin?
I got to say, I'm more intrigued by Bulla right now. I know what we get with James Franklin, right? We're never going to win a big game. We're going to get some big-name recruits. Recruiting will turn around, but we'll never beat a top 10 team. Max Bulla, on the other hand, everything I'm reading is like this guy is grit. He's going to be like the next Dan Campbell. So.
Will be interesting, and I'm not talking about with MSU specifically, but with all these coaches with buyouts as they begin to happen, and there's just so much turnover happening, if you're a shrewd business person and you want to make a spot, like James Franklin, I don't know every detail of his contract, but you could probably pay him $100,000 and
That's right. They have to match.
Just let Penn State, pay the rest of the salary and put that money into your program. The same if something were to happen to Jonathan Smith and he were elsewhere. I mean, these going forward, the coach who's bought out, who's still a good coach, might wind up being the hot commodity, the one that makes a lot of sense for schools because fiscally it makes sense.
So there's going to be a gigantic change with these the payouts for the coaches, right?
I don't know
if it's the payouts or it's the 10 years that you extend a guy and then you have to end up paying them. But it's interesting. I mean, could you get away with that if you say, "Hey, James, come on in. Penn State's going to pay you. We'll pay you $100,000."
Yeah, you'd probably have to still write something more into the buyout. The interesting thing is, I've seen a lot of talk of this is going to change the way colleges do business. Colleges can't help themselves, and they're also competing. Look at the number of openings already. And if there's somebody you want, you're competing with other schools for that guy. And so you're going to have to play ball. And if somebody else is going to offer a healthy buyout, then you're going to have to offer a healthy buyout to get them. We are not at that point yet at Michigan State with Jonathan Smith and his staff. We should say that the funeral has not happened yet.
You are about to enter the spin zone with noted newspaper columnist and radio host Graham Couch.
You sure?
Yeah. Well, let's go. Let's backtrack.
I read your column. It doesn't feel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
positive.
I don't think it's likely. Because a couple things. One, like Saturday was a game I did not see coming in the way it unfolded. Like, it's not that they lost that was entirely unpredictable. I mean, I didn't think they were going to lose the game, but like we've not seen MSU be a great team. But it was how they lost and the sort of the feeling of a little bit of give up and the demoralized team that looks like it's lost belief and the belief that it can find answers. There's a loss of confidence. And Michigan State's coaches, to their credit this week, have not been at all defensive. They've been pretty forthcoming about that.
Are you allowed to be after that performance?
Mel Tucker would have been defensive in this situation if people were talking about the outside noise.
We don't have enough time for all of that.
We don't have enough time. Is Mel going to come back?
Yeah, Mel's not coming back. But Mark D'Antonio, I will say, the best he ever was with media was during his 2016 3-9 season when he just got it and he just understood it. That doesn't save you, though, if you're Jonathan Smith and this staff. And, Saturday was one of those performances that's problematic because we've sort of seen that before and it never goes well from here. That's the thing.
Right.
And, in modern college football, you do not get the 4 years. Like we used to talk with Mel Tucker about he's got to get his guys, and this is when you can really judge them, and this is what is fair. And and I still believe as that era was coming in and the way he was recruiting, that was sort of the way to judge. It's just you also have to show people there's the potential of a high ceiling at some point. Like I do think fans in college football, and this goes everywhere. This is Penn State, which I think is going to find life tougher after James Franklin, depending on who they get. This is everywhere where you're going to see inconsistency, and you're going to see programs that are really good programs have a 4-8 season, a 5-7 season, and you can no longer write that off as the direction of the program. It's a blip. They got it wrong in the portal that year. The culture isn't great because what you no longer have anymore is guys who are completely bought in because they're not going to leave. They've waited 3 or 4 years to start. They're all in on the program. This is who they are. This program is their identity. Guys come in, they move, they leave. It's transactional. There's going to be a lot more quitting teams, and there's going to be a lot more years that go south. But you have to show the ceiling, too. You have to show the potential for the great years. Fan bases are going to have to deal with the occasional 4-8. That's going to happen. But you got to deliver the 10-2s and the 9-3s and beyond to survive those. It is just weird that 18 games in, we're in this point. But the interesting thing is, too, and while I don't see a path forward, or a likely path forward, I should say. I mean, I see a path. I just don't. It doesn't.
You don't see anything that could happen this season. That could turn the fan base around, the donors around.
Well, here's. I
mean, obviously winning out.
Here's the path, and here's why there's always a chance. And I think there is there is a chance if things go really south this week at Indiana that'll be it. And I don't know what really south means, but I think you'll kind of know it when you see it.
Losing by 60?
Yeah, that's really
spreads
south.
At 27, right?
But if say they just lose the game by a couple touchdowns, by 17 points, 20 points, and it's not any embarrassing game, they're just not quite as good, but it doesn't look like they've quit. They're playing hard. It's whatever. And then they beat Michigan because Michigan's not that good. And they've beaten Michigan out of nowhere before. Again, I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying if you beat Michigan, well, you're not getting rid of a guy who just beat Michigan. Penn State's a mess. They got Maryland to the end of the year. You can see how if they beat Michigan, there's a path to a bowl game still, and then that would look like momentum. So the thing they'll have to decide internally is if they're already sort of out here and things go badly at Indiana, then they should make the move. They should. I mean, you shouldn't, because it's if you let them play Michigan, there are a couple things that can go wrong. One, it goes really bad at Michigan, and if you make a move then, like with Bobby Williams, it's like you let Michigan, your rival, knock out a coach. That's not great. Or you win the game and you've decided you want to move on, but now you've got a guy who's just beaten Michigan, who's got a team that feels good about itself, that's got opportunities to win ahead, and he can salvage his tenure, or at least.
So we're just trying to figure out what's less embarrassing at this point.
Well, yeah, and so they have to figure out what they want. But I think, and that's why it's. While I have never seen a team that looked like they did last week against UCLA recover to the point that they're going to do the things that I'm talking about.
Right.
But I'm saying if I were in that building, I would not think it was completely lost hope, because you can see if you can, and sometimes in the building you're the last to know. So I don't. It's hard for me to know. I mean,
it's pretty easy to see what they showed against UCLA and the things we saw on the field, and some of the UCLA players, former Michigan State players that were on that UCLA team, right? That were talking about the guys had nothing. They didn't want to play in that game whatsoever. You just get beat, get hammered at homecoming. What do you need to see against Indiana? I know you're just trying to give a glimmer of hope or whatever. I don't know.
I think for some people they'd rather it just happen, and so they don't want
just let them coach the season out.
No, they'd rather you just move on now, and so they don't want those wins to happen. They don't want to continue it because they don't think he can be the guy. And I think the fan base is probably pretty split on that. I think it's really hard to tell people it's better off they lose to Michigan because that's just not ingrained in the MSU psyche.
Well, what coach would they put in the interim basis, though, that players could rally around in maybe possibly that Michigan game, right? Like, who do you make the interim? Or do you just let Smith coach it out as you're looking? I still can't believe that Franklin got canned, though, at Penn State with that big of a buyout. That's wild to me. And Smith seeing that had to be like, okay, I'm done here.
My hunch, and again, we're not at this point, my hunch is it would be Courtney Hawkins or somebody like that if they went the rest of the year.
That was if you were picking it, yeah.
Well, I think that's also where
you're
they'd go.
You're a big Courtney Hawkins
I
fan.
think that's where they'd go.
Okay.
But we're just not there yet. And that's what's
But we're close.
What's interesting,
close.
Correct.
Yeah.
But there still is this game. There still is this data point. There still is this strange opportunity where even if people and I'm not sure how everybody over at MSU feels that the higher, but whatever, regardless of that, like I definitely don't feel whatever Jay Batt feels about Jonathan Smith as a head coach. I'm pretty sure he didn't go into this year thinking he was going to have to do this sort of thing, and that when you're a first, you've been 4 or 5 months on the job, having to do this sort of thing is not convenient. It's not helpful.
Pound the bushes.
And so it would be interesting, even if somebody like Jay Batt wasn't sure about the direction of things long term, whether he thought there was some benefit to going to next year. It's a weird place to be because 2 weeks ago, I didn't see this coming. I didn't. I thought they would be. This is year 2. I thought it was. I think it's a pretty competent staff overall. It just hasn't worked, and he hasn't connected to this point. And they haven't had moments where they look like the better coach team out there. They've had too many moments like at Michigan, Rutgers at the end of last year, Nebraska this year, UCLA. Like those are defining games, not enough of the Iowa last year. Now, because you're still the coach, you go down to Indiana. Nobody in the world thinks that's going to go well. But if it goes relatively well, you've as long as you're the staff, you've still got an opportunity. And because it's only year 2, you're in this weird spot where I think the opportunity is still real if you can perform well enough this week and then do something against Michigan. It's not.
But you have to admit, even 2 weeks ago, this program didn't have much juice around it. I know we would talk about it, and you would try to give some sort of glimmer of hope like you're doing today.
No. There's not.
But I'm just saying,
there's a difference between.
We've seen enough.
There's a difference between not having juice and having a trajectory that you just can't find hope, right?
Or the team gives up on.
The last 2 games were the opportunity for juice. You get to 5-1. Indiana looks like gangbusters. You may not win that game anyway, but Michigan looks vulnerable. Penn State just fired their coach. Their quarterback's out for the year. They're coming to Spartan Stadium in November. Minnesota's not great. You got Maryland to the end of the year. If you had gotten a 5-1, there would be juice. And they could have been 5-1, I think. I think it's not 5-1 is not outside of the physical abilities of this team, and that's where people are frustrated. People can stand a team not living up to or not being plucky and just not having the horses, right? Yeah. You can do it. And last week had a little to do with that. They had a lot of injuries on defense, and I do think one of the things about this situation this year with MSU's football team, both on defense and the offensive line, is got to be careful how much you buy into depth, the talk of depth again. And this goes, I'm talking to myself here, because we heard a whole lot about depth. It's hard to pick an offensive line. You got 10 guys, maybe 7 or 8. Turns out there were a couple of them they just really can't live without, and they're not as deep as they thought. You wouldn't be playing who you're playing at right tackle if you were as deep as you thought. You'd look better up there. Your quarterback would have. I think that's played a big reason why Aiden Childs has taken such a step back and lost some confidence, and they know it. And the question is, and
that's supposed to be Smith's bread and butter is the offensive line, and you're rotating guys in and out.
Well, it's supposed to be quarterback. Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see whether because they have done nothing as a staff to this point to exude to bring out about any confidence from the fan base. They have maybe a couple last, maybe a few last opportunities to change that, but they would have to do something that seems against the run of play, so to speak, against the trajectory. What was your thought when you're watching that game? What was your thought before you read anything I wrote or saw the discourse? What was going on?
I said, "Wow, we're going to come back. We didn't have a show on the last Friday due to a scheduling conflict, and I'm going to come back to a new coaching hire or a coaching search." That is, I thought for sure after the way they showed on homecoming. I don't care how injured or how depleted you are or lack of depth that you have to show up like that. And UCLA comes in. I know they had success the week before at home against Penn State, but to come and travel and talking about all the travel, the time change and everything and how that would affect UCLA. And UCLA came in and just absolutely dominated you. And that's the shocking thing to me. I just didn't think Smith was the guy the whole year. I just didn't see the juice, the excitement for the program, the recruits coming in. So it doesn't surprise me as far as I just didn't think Smith would be the head coach of Michigan State next year. But my big question is, so no more Nick Marsh. Giles.
Well, but you can't worry about that. If you're making a change, you're making a bigger change. You're making a broader change.
I understand we have to do that.
You can't worry about it.
They leave. I'm just saying, but yeah, they're going to be gone, right?
And if you make a change, you're making a broader change, and you're not worried about individual players. And
Marsh, I'd like Marsh to stay.
And there's a good chance next year won't be any better because most situations aren't Curt Cignetti. Most people don't have. Now, if you hire, if James Franklin were to come in and you bring half of his Penn State roster, then, maybe you got. But most people don't have 11 starters like Cignetti had. And are
universities really dying to have Franklin on their campus, though? I mean, yeah, as far as recruiting, but to lose games like he's lost, and obviously the buyout would be,
there are so
vastly different.
There are so many places that would just kill to be 10-2 every year and have a chance to be in the playoffs. They were one game away from the national championship game last year.
But then you get there, and then you go, well, why can't we win the big game and in the college football playoff? Like, you're supposed to have aspirations.
You deal with that when you get there.
You don't have to deal with garbage and shit. If this is how we're going to do the new college football landscape, then let's do it. I don't mind it if that's what we're going to do.
But if you're at MSU right now, you can't even win the game against UCLA on homecoming.
Absolutely.
Don't worry, the national semifinals, the least of your worries, like that's a problem. That's a first world problem that you don't live in. And so you got to get yourself there first, and then you'd have. Look, I'm not saying I am not advocating that if Michigan State makes a change here, that they eventually hire James Franklin. I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying that I think it was a mistake that what Penn State did. Now, I will say this: there are a lot of people, and Chris Solari the other day brought this up on Spartan Speak, another podcast.
Graham.
The idea that, like, nationally, there are a lot of people going, wait a second, it's year 2. How is this happening? You got to give a guy time. What's going on? And yet, if you're here locally, you sort of understand how this has gotten to this point.
Yeah.
And it's not. Look, it's not. Be clear, it's not something I root for. I like Jonathan Smith personally. I think he'd be.
Oh shucks, thanks, man.
I think I'd enjoy covering him for the next 10 years if that's what worked out. I think he's a good guy. I think he's the type of person you want representing your program. It just hasn't worked, and it again. I'm struggling to see how it does.
He's a guy that you want representing your program, but 10 years ago, his shtick worked. Unfortunately, now, and that's under the circumstance, hiring a new AD/manager, whatever you want to call Jay Batt, it's a recipe for we just have to move on. Sorry, you're a good guy.
Well, no, you also need somebody.
It's the Matt Shepard thing.
I think the Midwest ties are real. I think the ability to connect with the fan base is real at Michigan State. Of somebody who can kind of meet the fan base where they are is important, and he has been unable to do that to this point. What would be interesting, and what he has not done, is winning cures things. So if you go down to Bloomington, Indiana, and you upset the Hoosiers, which is, again, not going to happen yet, I don't think, and then you turn around and you beat Michigan and you make some great wisecrack that people love, if is that enough? I know people have been completely out on him before this season.
I want to hear the wisecrack. I'm rooting for the Indiana win and the Michigan win, just so I can hear this wisecrack that would take over Spartan Nation.
It would be funny is if he said something. You know how Curt Cignetti says, Google me, I win, when he got the job? If he said, Google me. Oh, wait, no, don't look at the headlines. Don't Google me. But we're turning this around or something like that.
Bing me. What's the old
Bing? Yeah.
Bing, yeah. Is that search engine?
Use your Yahoo search engine, whatever.
AOL. Yeah.
We have what I think is going to be a good show here today.
We do?
We do.
It's impossible. It's just a bucket of ass everywhere you look.
We are going to talk some Tigers in a little bit with Cody Stavenhagen from The Athletic and talk about their offseason.
So I can hear how bad Riley Green is.
Yeah.
And we don't need him anymore.
We'll talk some Lions after that as well. We and next we're going to have Zach Osterman from the Indy Star on here in a few minutes to talk about Curt Cignetti and what's happened there and Indiana and the state of that program. And just
will you be doing your apology during that interview to Curt Cignetti?
I still think he schedules like ass. I'm not apologizing for that. And he doesn't need to. That's what pisses me off.
He's the hottest coach in the country.
Absolutely. And it would still be my first question. I'd be like, what the hell, man? Like, play a Division I schedule.
He'd be like, Google me, bitch. Get off me. I'm winning games. Nice flannel.
Yeah.
Douche.
It's funny how much, Michigan State's coaches have been asked about Cignetti this week. It's because he is sort of this inconvenient anomaly, and people are...
Who wants to hear about that if you're on the Michigan State coaching
well,
staff?
And people are studying how it's happened. And Joe Rossi made some interesting points today. It's like it's not like they're running schemes that are different than other schemes. They're not. It's just it's the discipline. It's what's happening in the building, and it's the players. And he said you got to get players. I mean, they've been pretty frank about it. And if you read between the lines, they know they don't exactly have the guys. It's pretty amazing though, because Curt Cignetti is a thorn for any coach who was hired about the same time, or new coach trying to get things going. But he's not a determining problem. Jonathan Smith is not, his tenure is not sort of in peril, as I wrote here after the game, because of Curt Cignetti. Curt Cignetti is added to a lack of patience, which I think Curt Cignetti is going to have one of these 4-8 seasons at some point too. I think you get the portal wrong one year, the culture, whatever. It won't mean he's a bad coach. I think that stuff is just coming for college football. It's going to be hard to, and you're going to have to deal with it. And some places are going to make a bad move too quickly. James Franklin, similar to how people feel in-house at Michigan State, where you can look from afar and go, it doesn't make sense. People there were just tired of it. We're tired of it. And so there it makes more sense. Now, it's a huge buyout, and it's a risk because he had won at a level that's harder to replace. If Michigan State were to make a move on Jonathan Smith, you're replacing a guy who hasn't won. It's easier to eclipse.
Penn State before the season was like minus 390 to make the college football playoff. Yeah. I just think if you give a scenario with Franklin and all the things he's done against top 20 teams or top 10 teams, that is, in the past, you just have to make a move no matter what the buyout is, because you want to keep up with all these other schools that are sitting there paying these other guys and buying out. I mean, it's not even close to the Jimbo Fisher one, right? That was the craziest buyout with Texas A&M. That was like $72 million. So
that's yeah. So what is this one second all time, right?
And Smith's will be third.
Would be third if
it'll be third. Yeah.
Would happen before we get to Zach. The most entertaining thing I saw this week and this weekend, and we will get into this a little bit later with Cody, was the Tigers game presented by Xfinity and Xfinity Mobile TV and streaming. I broke a treadmill. I walked so much during that game because I just said I'm going to keep walking till this game is over. It went like 15 innings. I went like 11, 12 miles, and because I didn't start till later in the game. And
Zion was a big deal because he was a huge guy, and I just broke my chair.
And the treadmill gave out, and now it doesn't work as well, and I have to order another one on the warranty. But it was an incredible game. It was it is one of the most until the end.
It is not. I don't know. Everybody's talking about this is going to be on MLB Classics for years to come. I don't want to watch that shit ever again. As a Tigers fan, it wasn't a great game. It sucked ass. We left runners in scoring position. By the way, when we were in Denver, Treese and I stayed with a friend of ours who officiated our wedding, and it was her first ever baseball game she ever watched. So 15 innings she grinded through. I couldn't believe she stayed up for the whole thing, but yeah.
Well, that is the most entertaining thing I saw. Maybe not Jason. Presented by our friends at Xfinity. Speedy, reliable home internet, Wi-Fi equipment, unlimited data, and an unlimited mobile line on Xfinity for 1 year for $40 a month for 1 year. Give your Wi-Fi a monster boost. Go to Xfinity.com. You'll see the offer there. You type in your address, see what the deals are. They have great deals on mobile, on TV, and home internet, and great deals combining them. And like I mentioned before, we were on our little break. I had to quickly upgrade to SEC Network. My buddy was coming over to watch his team. Called, instantly happened. My price actually went down, and they got me a great deal. Go to Xfinity.com today. We'll be right back. We'll talk with Zach Osterman about Curt Cignetti Indiana in this matchup with Michigan State. Couch in the Rube, our Wednesday afternoon show presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels.
Firekeepers Online Casino and Sportsbook is the site to play from your phone, tablet, or laptop. Get in on all the football action with pre- and in-game wagering. There's showdowns every week in football that you can't miss. Plus, the college and pro hoops are red hot, and the pucks are cool. Get your first casino deposit and sports wager matched up to $500 each. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Where else can you cheer on your team? Enjoy a mouth-watering burger or savory sushi. Sip on handcrafted cocktails or one of 46 beers on tap. Take your game day or date night to Cask & Company Kitchen Bar or Front 43 Neighborhood Pub near Frandor. Two amazing places with one awesome blended modern American Asian menu. Catch the game on one of 30 60-inch TVs or stop in for the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet. Enjoy happy hour or elevate your night out at Cask & Company or Front 43 on East Saginaw in Lansing. Ever wonder how comfortable you can be and how good you can look? Put on a Muskox flannel and find out. Muskox has new arrivals for this fall, including the Caper Green Grand Flannel, which even makes couch look good. Muskox is a Detroit-based flannel company that creates soft and durable flannels made to last a lifetime. They become a great partner with Couch in the Rube, not just because they make us look good and feel good, but because they're good people too, and a socially conscious company. For every $100 purchase, $10 is donated to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation. Muskox flannels are designed with 100% cotton that is ethically sourced and double brushed for softness. Feel the quality and comfort of a Muskox flannel by ordering at GoMuskox.com, where Couch in the Rube listeners can enjoy $15 off their flannel purchase with the promo code HOFF.
Find Couch in the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite podcast addict.
Couch in the Rube, our Wednesday afternoon show presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. Go to GoMuskox.com where you can use the Couch in the Rube promo code PEACOCK and PEA cock for $15 off your flannel purchase. Very pleased now to have a good friend and great writer for the Indy Star who covers Indiana football, the juggernaut that is, also a giant Liverpool fan, which is what we're here to talk about. Zach Osterman. Zach, how you doing?
I'm still a little worried about what I've walked into here. that intro. It's only 1:35 p.m. in the Eastern Time Zone. I'm not sure we're ready for that just yet. But let's see where the afternoon takes us.
You should always be worried about what you walk into on the show. You never know. Okay, so what you're covering is very different than what I'm covering up here with Michigan State. Curt Cignetti, did you on a scale of 1 to 10? Is this a 10 of anything you thought was in the realm of possibility when he took over the program?
Probably close to it. And it's been because of the scale of it, right? I thought he would win at Indiana simply because he's won everywhere he's been. 14 winning seasons in 14 years. It kind of doesn't matter what level of football you're coaching. That just suggests you have that gene a little bit. But at this level, at this scale, and not, it's been the nature of the way they're winning these games. It's been the progress. Obviously, so much was made after last season of the Ohio State and the Notre Dame games juxtaposed against everything else on the schedule, and Indiana turns around and, 10 months later is beating Illinois by 53 and then winning on the road at Oregon, and almost like just answering every question that pops up. It is sort of like the comprehensive nature of it all, the kinds of games they're winning, the way they're winning them, and also just, if you watch them, you and I have seen plenty of football in our lives. They're just a really good football team. They're clean, they're smart, they're tough, they don't make mistakes. Their best players are probably their best leaders, are probably their toughest players. Obviously the staff's been together for a long time. Like and I said this a lot last year around this time where I said, I don't know exactly where this is going, but it's a good football team. I'll say it again, but obviously I think we can all recognize the ceiling is higher now. I don't know exactly where this is going, but it's just a really, really good football team.
Yeah, I mean, the Illinois game was one thing, right? It's that moment where you go, wow, that's because Illinois is a solid team. And then you go out to Oregon and you just look like the better team. It makes it just different than last year. Like, it's a team that all of a sudden you think, well, I guess they might have the capability of winning it all. And then obviously there can be a team or two better that they can't be, but we don't know that yet based on who they've played. What makes them different than last year? Like, last year was a really good story. There's a lot of I thought they maximized who they were, and obviously you brought half your starters come over from James Madison, which has been a really good team. They understand the system. There's buy-in. There's all that stuff. What makes year two even better than year one?
Well, I think there are a few things. Number one, I think they returned enough from last season. They did lose some pieces, right? They lose Curtis Rourke. They lose a few wide receivers. They lose their top two running backs, their starting center, some pieces on defense. But you still had all-conference and all-America caliber players, at a number of skill positions. I think the offensive line is probably better than it was a season ago, and some of that's development of guys that are now in year three under Bob Bostad, the line coach, year two in this offense. Some of it's also going out and getting a player like Pat Coogan to replace Mike Kadick, who was a very good center. I think Coogan's been just as good, if not maybe in some ways a little bit better. And that's no slight on Kadick. It's just Coogan's a really good player. And I think also, and maybe this is something that is starting to manifest itself a little bit more in the last few weeks. I think a lot of people took note of Isaiah Jones, for example, the linebacker who played so well in the Oregon win and right now has the most tackles for loss of any player in the conference. We spent so much of last season talking about transfers, talking about those JMU players you referenced. There are some players starting to bubble up through this roster that are just developing because this is a natural sort of inflection point in their careers. Jones, he played some last year. This is kind of a natural next step for him as a player the staff really likes. Mario Landino and Tyrick Tucker, each in his own way, was kind of a James Madison transfer. Landino was committed to James Madison and then flipped when the staff came over. Tucker transferred in as a redshirt freshman, but really didn't get, a lot of attention because he was kind of a little bit, he wasn't one of the main contributors coming over from Harrisonburg. Those two have really, really taken a step forward this year. And I think it's, Fernando Mendoza obviously gets a ton of justified headlines. We didn't know how limited Curtis Rourke was because we didn't know about the knee injury through all of last season. But I think you can see even some things maybe that Mendoza can do that Rourke couldn't do, possibly in part because of the physical limitations. But I can't really get away from they are just better at both lines of scrimmage. And some of that is development of guys that were really good last year. Some of it is transfers they brought in. Some of it is young players just stepping into more snaps, bigger roles, more opportunities. I don't think I ever thought I'd see the day that an Indiana defensive front six or really front seven, because they'll play three linebackers, a lot. That's how much they trust the athleticism of those three. That an Indiana defensive front seven would look as good as it did against a team like Oregon in Austin Stadium last weekend.
Indiana is a great example, I think, in the modern era of what momentum does for you too, right? It allows you to, it makes other players want to be a part of your program from one year to the next, and you're no longer, building. It used to be you could have a really good year, but you knew you were going to be younger the next year, and there wasn't much you could do about it, and it sort of momentum took a dip. Success wasn't always linear, and that sort of stuff. A couple questions for you here. One is, obviously there's the momentum of the players they brought in, but you and I have talked about this, and the just the enthusiasm from the donor base, the money people, the fan base to sustain this and build on it at a place that's always been known as a basketball school. Can you speak to that and what the idea that this is not just a blip, that this is where Indiana's investment now is?
Yeah, I tell people, and I've had this conversation a lot more recently, this is a football school now. And I'm not saying basketball can't get it back, or that there are going to be 3,000 people at every basketball game this winter. There is still culturally, tremendous emotional, financial, physical investment in basketball here. But and this is no knock on Darren DeVries. It's just about where the success is happening, and it's also, let's be fair. It is also about the reflection of where we are in college sports, and I think Indiana, up to and including the athletics director, the university president, the board of trustees, all recognized first when they made the hire, and then again when they saw the kind of success Cignetti could deliver, that agency in football is just a currency that cannot be matched in modern college athletics. And the boat has been pushed out so far in terms of donor engagement, in terms of fundraising and NIL. Obviously, Indiana has fully funded its rev share commitments. They've gone over the top on that and pretty significantly in NIL. I don't know an exact number, but my understanding is it's pretty much the kind of thing where the coach looks at it and says, that means I've got what I need. Of course, we don't know exactly how that number is going to get attenuated because Indiana, like a lot of schools, front-loaded all of its NIL money, so none of it would have to go through the clearinghouse this year. So how does that kind of stabilize or not, depending on, what happens with the CSC and the NIL Go process? But, just in general, the energy, the interest, the money, everything around here, this place has embraced football at a level that, and I don't mean to sound hyperbolic with this, at a level that you really just wouldn't believe. Because, and I think you and I have had this conversation recently, it's not just the last 2 years. Football has been consistently more competitive in the last 10, 11 years than basketball has. And basketball has had this sort of succession of, false dawns, and they've, they're on their fourth coach in 9 seasons, I think, or maybe 8 seasons. I guess it's 9 seasons. They've been to 3 of the last 10 NCAA tournaments. I think they've, if you look at just the last 9 years, there's something like 15 games under 500 in Big Ten play. Meanwhile, Indiana's been to the postseason in football 6, if you include this season, 6 times in the last 11 years, and there are 3 different head coaches. This is the 3rd different year in the last 6 that Indiana has at some point in the season been ranked in the top 10 nationally. If you want to go back to the COVID season, and I know people see that a little bit differently, but that means it's also 3 years in the last 6. Indiana has been in the thick of things in the conference title race in October. Football has given this fan base more, frankly, even independent of just how high it's climbed in the last, 20, 21 months than basketball has in the same period of time. And so it's kind of a collision of football was already maybe starting to capture some hearts and minds that you wouldn't have expected before Curt Cignetti comes in. And then once it gets supercharged the way it has been, everybody recognizes there's an opportunity here to just absolutely hit the ground sprinting.
Is there any fear of losing Cignetti? And obviously he's 64, so if he was 44, you'd wonder if he was a lifer. But what is a lifer at 64? I mean, that's the year I think that's how old Mark D'Antonio was when he retired. If I'm correct on that, I could be off a year. But and Cignetti doesn't look like a guy who's stopped. He's finally gotten this opportunity. This is his peak. This is his prime. But a job like Penn State comes open, and I'm sure they'll take a big swing. And anybody who's going to take a massive swing, it's going to be first and foremost probably at Cignetti. Do you sense that? How much fear is there on that? And do you sense that Indiana will be able to retain him?
I think they're certainly going to do everything they can. And I always tell people with this stuff, all it ever takes is one, right? All it ever takes is the right phone call, the right contract, whatever. I do think even in this kind of quick turnaround era, Cignetti's, his age is probably, something that if you are kind of selling that long-term vision, especially at a place like Penn State, I don't know if that's he said he wants to coach till he's 75. I don't know if that is somehow sort of like a mark in the con column at some point. The one thing I will say more than anything else is, and I think it's important to note, talk to people in college athletics. Obviously, coaches, they want comfortable salaries. They want staffing pools and all that. Coaches want to win, and they just want to be somewhere that they know they can win and that they're going to have the resources and that they're going to be compensated comfortably and according to their merits. But the thing they want more than anything else is just to be able to win. And I do not think that, given where obviously the Big Ten media rights money is, given, and we don't have to get into the philosophical, sort of rights and wrongs of all this today, but given the potential for this 9-figure per school private equity capital infusion that might be coming down the pike in the next few weeks or months or however long it takes, there's not going to be an even quasi-reasonable amount of money that someone else can offer Curt Cignetti, whether that is in his salary, his staffing pool, obviously his rev share budget, different resources. Indiana is in the process of beginning a pretty substantial renovation of Memorial Stadium. That if Cignetti's the head coach, he's going to have a very heavy hand in. It won't be financial, is what I'm trying to say, if somebody pulls Curt Cignetti away. And what I would say is that I would even go back to kind of his comments. He did the interview with Big Noon Kickoff after he signed his contract last season, and he said, kind of unprompted, people ask me, why do you sign this contract when maybe your name will be connected to that job or that job? Why don't you stretch your legs in the coaching carousel in the winter and then see where things stand? He said they were very proactive. I think that was also where he said we're the emerging superpower of college football, which I mean, maybe they are. I don't know. At this point, maybe he wasn't lying. Maybe we all just needed to listen more closely. But he also said in that interview, and again, fairly unprompted, Indiana was proactive. They went to him. They said, what do you need? They're not going to wait for a Penn State, a Florida, whoever, to come in and name a price and then try to go over top of that. They have, and they are going to continue to make the money available as long as they can and as long as he wants to be at Indiana to keep Curt Cignetti here. And that's not just like his salary. It's all of the infrastructure the coach thinks he needs to be successful. I can't sit here and say with 100% certainty, no, he's not going anywhere. History tends to be on the side of he probably isn't. And I'm not talking about Indiana's history. I'm talking about the larger history of hires like, for example, Penn State and what those coaches tend to look like and who they tend to be. But I can say, if nothing else, it will not be for lack of resources and it will not be for lack of investment.
Yeah, and the thing about Penn State, I don't know that it's a better job than Indiana right now. It's historically a better job, but you go to a place that's looking to go from 10-2 to 12-0, and that's a that's a different kind of pressure and thing you've got to meet. And I at Indiana, like you're a legend. They will build a statue. I also think Cignetti's a lesson to like Michigan State who paid Mel Tucker after the one season. Sometimes make sure they come back for year two and that level of play is sustained. But yeah, I hope he stays because I'm happy for Indiana. I think it's a cool story. I'm happy that he's gotten this opportunity. It's a lesson to athletic directors and administrations to stop hiring search firms and do deep dives and who's the guy at a smaller level who's waiting for that chance and call around and figure out who those people are. And because there are other coaches out there. I don't know how many Curt Cignettis there are, but there's probably another one. And that's the job, not to win the press conference, but to find the guy. And now Cignetti won big and at James Madison, and you also win the press conference to some degree with him. But that same coach was available a couple years earlier, and maybe he wouldn't have brought as many guys, but they would have been pretty good. This week, one of the things I've noticed about Cignetti is he does not lay off the pedal. Michigan State is a wounded team, a coaching staff, coaching to keep their era alive. What are the odds this is competitive, and what's the mindset coming off a cross-country trip to Oregon where you have this massive win? Do you think they stay focused and put one on Michigan State?
Yeah, I got the first question in his Monday press conference, and I asked Cignetti something about Fernando Mendoza, and he proceeded to ignore my question and just talk about complacency. And I think his term was ripping the rearview mirror off and moving on from Oregon. Like, I think that is pretty much going to define his entire message this week. And I think he's aware of that because, obviously that's the kind of win that, sometimes it's hard to get over, right? Like sometimes that's a hard win to kind of put behind you. In Indiana, even the Illinois game, even the Michigan game last year, whatever, Indiana hasn't had a win like that. I think what I would have said before the Oregon game, and I guess maybe this is kind of the ultimate test, is that Cignetti, like, at least one of his famous mentors, has that innate ability that all coaches chase and that I think a lot of coaches never quite find to just only ever get 100% focus, effort, toughness, and intensity from their team. If you beat Indiana, at least on the evidence we have so far, and it's a small sample size, it's 19 games now, but if you beat Indiana, you do it on your merits. That's what we learned from last season. That's what we have learned so far this season. If you're better than Indiana, if you're deeper, if your scheme is better or your plan is better, you've got more athletes, you're better at the line of scrimmage, you'll beat them. But you won't beat them because they don't take you seriously. You won't beat them because they won't stay focused. You won't beat them because they'll overlook you. And obviously, Indiana's playing the program that invented football next weekend in UCLA in what might be the biggest Big Ten game ever. So, maybe this is the ultimate test in that direction too. But that has always been, to my eyes, one of Cignetti's greatest sort of intangible abilities as a coach. If you think about earlier this season, and I won't ramble on forever, but they played Indiana State in their last non-conference game, and then they played Illinois in their first conference game back-to-back weeks. And in both games, they pulled their starters. Indiana State, I think they pulled their starters after one drive in the third quarter. Illinois, they let their starters go through the end of the third quarter. And in the fourth quarter of both games, they threw it a little bit against Indiana State to get the backup quarterback, Fernando Mendoza's little brother, Alberto, coincidentally, just a few pass attempts, just give him some game reps. They did not throw the ball once in the fourth quarter against Illinois. They just ran it with their third/fourth string running back, Kobe Martin. And he was their leading rusher in both games. He rushed for over 100 yards in both games, despite not touching the ball until the third quarter against Indiana State, and I don't think the fourth quarter against Illinois. And there was this perception of, especially with the Illinois game, they're running it up. They're trying to put it on everybody all the time. They didn't throw the ball in the fourth quarter, and they weren't being that creative about what they were doing running it either. It was just a lot of halfback power, off tackle, zone read stuff. The only reason they had starting linemen in the game, I think, was to protect their backup quarterback as long as Illinois had its starting front six in the game. And they were still just tearing off 10, 12, 20-yard runs. And that to me was a window into this roster's ability from your number ones all the way down to your number fives, from your seniors to your freshmen. It doesn't matter if it's Indiana State. It doesn't matter if it's Illinois. There is just this focus and this intensity that never wavers. And I think that is the greatest sort of unmeasurable quality Cignetti can get into his roster. I would be surprised if Indiana is not serious about Michigan State this weekend. Now, it's a rivalry game. It looks like it's going to be a rainy day. You never know, right? I get that, especially in college sports, you never know. But I would be surprised if Indiana is not ready for this game.
Sounds good for Michigan State. It's one of D'Antonio's greatest traits was that it was how they did after Michigan and Ohio State and how good they were in those weeks and the games they should have won, and that really changed the perception and the ability to sustain things for the program. Zach, I will see you in the press box on Saturday, my man, and appreciate all the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, as always.
So, Jason? What's your prediction now?
70-3.
Okay.
Siggy. By the way, I was thinking about him at Penn State, and you mentioned the age. I just don't see. I mean, the $13 million buyout. And by the way, if Cignetti and Indiana make the college football playoff, that contract of his becomes fully guaranteed. So if he makes the college football playoff this year, Indiana owes him the full contract. And if you're Penn State, you would have to buy him out at this $13 million price. You'd have to pay Indiana that, correct?
Beyond for the Franklin thing, whatever that is. Yeah.
Right. So you'd have to. You're doing all of these things, and like you said, I don't think Cignetti would want that Penn State job.
I just think
you got a good thing happening here.
Penn State's in a tough spot because of the. I'm not saying Michigan State's in a good spot, right. but it is really hard to take a perennial 10-2 program and improve it. A team that was
well, you just got to win big games here and there. You can lose two games.
The problem is, though, what James Franklin did is he ultimately, he recruited at an incredibly high level. So before you can be at the level that Penn State was at and then take the next step, you got to continue to recruit at that level, which takes a certain type of person. And again, there's the finances involved, and Penn State will have the money, and there are things like that in terms of.
What if Michigan State hired Franklin as the recruiting coordinator? He didn't coach at all. He just goes out and recruits. He's our guy. Penn State's paying him $8 million, so we break him off $100K.
There you go.
Deal. I figured this whole thing out.
Low pressure job. Come in. You get paid.
Because I'm with you. I just think that you can lose two games in this college football playoff scenario that we have currently in college football. If you have the record against top 5 teams like Franklin had, something has to give. And then losing those games that he did this year and being 3-3 when everybody in the planet thought you were going to make the college football playoff. I like Cignetti. I don't know.
Well,
I like his whole vibe. So.
Oh, absolutely. And look, he can be. I think one of the things that held him back in life is he's perceived as a bit of a jerk. And,
really?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would
be a jerk too if I had to deal with all of these all the things you have to deal with.
Yeah, cantankerous little guy. Not little. I mean, but yeah.
Does he look right through you?
I know. I don't.
Did he look through Osterman's question about Mendoza?
I'm not saying that.
Because I got to say, I think I would go with the Cignetti route. Like, how many questions we got to answer about Mendoza?
Hey man, when you're winning like that and you're fiery and people like at Indiana, I've seen a lot of suffering.
But I think that's what a lot of you speak of fiery, and then there was some call and there was video of Cignetti losing his shit. I think as a fan base, not just at Michigan State, but as a Lions fan, like I know Dan Campbell does a good job of it sometimes, but you want your coach to not just sit there all the time. We talked about it with different coaches from our past. What's the former Lions coach? Caldwell, that would have the one that, he would never just rip his headset down and start yelling at a ref. You just want a little bit of that.
That can't, and the thing is, it's not even. It's more you have to be able to connect. And I go back to that Michigan game, and I think I did a poor job of covering it last year because I didn't
want to say anything.
Thank you. I do think if he had come into that post game and said, "Yeah, that can't happen again," not just the loss, but how it happened on me, my bad. That's a big freaking game, and if he had connected in that moment, people and
But that wouldn't have worked out well for him either, though.
Why not?
Because I just think that would have produced some, not bulletin board, but people would have clipped that and been like,
Well, they've got to go down and contend with the Fighting Cignettis this weekend. We'll see.
Can we not hire a nice guy for the next hire, though?
You just want a jackass?
Seriously, Cignetti, some guy that's kind of pissed off, gives back to the media, gives them some shit, kind of like Izzo. That would be fun.
Okay,
some personality. That's it.
Maybe
I guess you could still be a nice guy.
Maybe Izzo in his 70s finally gets to be the MSU football coach. His absolute dream. Before we get to
don't coach
before we get to Cody and talk some Tigers, I do want to mention before we took our unexpected short hiatus vacation, which by the way was I'm never going to throw anybody under the bus, but was not our fault. Like I was driving in to do the show. You were.
I was driving in. I was almost here.
Yeah. So it was just a studio scheduling mix-up, and that was the time we had allotted to do it.
Well, we blame Couch anyway.
Well, yes, it's fair, and I've made enough gaffes to take that blame. But we did have the contest to win a Muskox flannel from me from my winnings on the Cleveland Guardians winning the division. We are continuing that. So throughout this week, you can DM me or hashtag Couch in the Rube Muskox, or you can email me at graham.couch@gmail.com. I did have it pointed out to me that some people don't want the ugliest photo they've ever taken on the internet, so they don't want to send it. So we've gotten a few, some good ones, but through this week, if you want to email me or DM me, we need an ugly photo next to your best photo because I need to see the contrast. We need to see the person who's ugliest really needs the Muskox. And again, regardless, you can go to gomuskox.com and use the promo code Peacock for $15 off a flannel purchase. We'll take a really quick break. When we come back, Cody Stavenhagen from The Athletic will talk about the Tigers and their offseason. Couch in the Rube, presented by Muskox Quality Flannels.
Firekeepers Online Casino and Sportsbook is the site to play from your phone, tablet, or laptop. Get in on all the football action with pre- and in-game wagering. There's showdowns every week in football that you can't miss. Plus, the college and pro hoops are red hot, and the pucks are cool. Get your first casino deposit and sports wager matched up to $500 each. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Where else can you cheer on your team? Enjoy a mouth-watering burger or savory sushi. Sip on handcrafted cocktails or one of 46 beers on tap. Take your game day or date night to Cask & Company Kitchen, Bar, or Front 43 Neighborhood Pub near Frandor. 2 amazing places with one awesome blended modern American-Asian menu. Catch the game on one of 30 60-inch TVs or stop in for the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet. Enjoy happy hour or elevate your night out at Cask & Company or Front 43 on East Saginaw in Lansing. Ever wonder how comfortable you can be and how good you can look? Put on a Muskox flannel and find out. Muskox has new arrivals for this fall, including the Caper Green Grand Flannel, which even makes couch look good. Muskox is a Detroit-based flannel company that creates soft and durable flannels made to last a lifetime. They become a great partner with Couch in the Rube, not just because they make us look good and feel good, but because they're good people too, and a socially conscious company. For every $100 purchase, $10 is donated to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation. Muskox flannels are designed with 100% cotton that is ethically sourced and double brushed for softness. Feel the quality and comfort of a Muskox flannel by ordering at gomuskox.com, where Couch in the Rube listeners can enjoy $15 off their flannel purchase with the promo code HOFF.
Find Couch in the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite podcast addict.
Couch in the Rube, our Wednesday show presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. The other thing we missed, and the epic thing that was the most entertaining thing I saw last week presented by our friends at Xfinity was the 15-inning Tigers game, which obviously didn't end the way that people wanted to, but it was an epic finish to a season I think left a sour taste in people's mouths just because of what September was and sort of some concerns about the future. Nobody covers the Tigers better than Cody Stavenhagen for The Athletic. Who has been with them, I'm grateful the Tigers at least turned a corner for Cody because all the misery, and he left covering college football to cover the Tigers, and then they promptly had like 6 straight 100-loss seasons. But now he's got, different issues with the Tigers. Cody, how you doing, man?
Hey, doing all right. I missed a couple of those 100-loss seasons, but 2019 was my first, so it was a rough introduction.
You've certainly seen enough. You've earned covering something more. You listen. Obviously, you're at Scott Harris's presser, and what is your big takeaway from what he thinks needs to be done versus sort of what you think needs to be done?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time kind of trying to process that press conference. It was long and it was packed with a lot of information. I'm not sure it was packed with a lot of answers. It was kind of a lot of talking aloud about the questions, just like we're probably about to do. I think it was good, though, that there was a level of acknowledgement about the shortcomings and the failures of this team. Obviously, Harris still touted the things they did well, what they've accomplished the past 2 years, the bright future with the farm system. But I was curious if he was going to keep it real about the ways this team fell short, and for the most part, he did. I didn't come away with a clear sense of what they think the answer is or what has to happen this offseason. There was a lot of talk about the lineup and the swing and miss, and this team has to be better at moving the ball forward. I think that has to come with some form of roster reshaping. It kind of remains to be seen how much of that the Tigers will do versus how much they're going to coach up internal guys. They're going to lean on the guys coming up through the system. I think there's still a lot of questions to how they approach this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels like to me they're a roster that has some good players, but they don't have any A-level players other than Skubal, right? And so, like, what do you sense that they think that? Like, and obviously, who knows what their top prospects become? There's a chance, and I think it's good they hung on to those guys because you'd hate for them to go somewhere else and then really shine. But on the major league roster right now, there is nobody in the lineup that you look at and go, that's a guy who can carry an offense for a month. Well, maybe for a month, you guys get hot. But you know what I mean? There's not that guy. Do you think they understand it? And is there a way to, like, I mean, what's the step to change that? Somebody's got to move, right? You can't come back. You can't run it back with the same lineup.
Yeah, I think they know that. I think Scott Harris and AJ Hinch in the front office are a lot of things, but they're not dumb. They know the reality of this situation. What remains to be seen is, are they going to fall into the trap of overvaluing some of their own players, whether that's guys at the major league level like Zach McKinstry or Winslow Perez, who have some strengths but aren't realistically all-star level players. I know McKinstry made the all-star game this year. Or if that's their prospects, right? I mean, so many organizations can fall in love with prospects, and I don't know. It wasn't that long ago Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson were as heralded as it gets, and they were advanced hitters. And now they are good but not great major league players. That's just how it works a lot of the time. I think the tricky thing about having a young core like the Tigers do, they're bringing back everyone except Gleyber Torres, which in some ways is good. And in some ways is like, well, if you're going to make a change, who do you move on from? How do you replace that player? What position are you even targeting? I mean, they pretty clearly have some playing time open in the infield, but there's not really, from my viewpoint, a clear solution as to, hey, go do this and then everything gets better. They're going to have to be selective about where they make an addition or who they move on from. And that might have to mean making some hard decisions about players they like, but maybe don't love.
Yeah, the Torkelson Green situation is interesting because obviously you can win with both those guys in the lineup, but they have to a very close to high degree. I don't know if you can win with those guys as the heart of your lineup. And so, I mean, the question then is, one's a first baseman, one's a corner outfielder, which are two, big bat positions. Do you think that both of those guys are still part of their plan long term?
Yeah, for as long as they're under team control, I think they almost have to be. You're not just going to move on from a first baseman who can hit you 30 homers if you don't have to. You're not just going to move on from a left fielder who a year ago was a 4 or 5 win player and this year hit 36 home runs if you don't have to. Now, I don't. That again, it's a hard line. A lot of people always want to talk like, hey, they're busts, they're terrible, or, oh, they need to be given this lucrative contract extension. I don't think either one of those things is true, but I think you have 3-ish more years of each of those guys as Tigers and 4, I believe, for Riley Green. And, we'll see what happens and what you can do in those few years. They're certainly part of the plan for the foreseeable future. Yeah. But to your point, I think it's becoming clearer and clearer. They're good pieces, but not the piece or not the final pieces you need to win a World Series.
They are in an interesting spot where you don't want to block a top prospect, right? You have to figure out what position you want different guys to be in. Of their top guys, is there one that you are most in on, and who do you think gets to the majors first?
Yeah, I think it's Kevin McGonigal. I don't really think it's close. I think he's really advanced. He has a chance to be really good. What is he ultimately at the major leagues, I think, depends on a few factors. A, what position does he play? Is he a shortstop? Is he a second baseman? Is he a third baseman? It seems like the idea of him being an everyday shortstop is already dwindling. He's in the Arizona Fall League, mostly playing third. And then how much power will he hit for at the major league level? I think he's surprised with the power he hit for this year in the minor leagues. There have been some Jose Altuve comparisons. I don't hate that. At the same time, if you just went on Twitter and what you saw, on social media, you would think he hit like 330 in AA. He didn't. He hit 258. So, even he is not 100% perfect, but I think he can hit. I think it's going to translate. I think he's going to be a really good major league player. I think he's the only one that I'm all in on. There are things to like about these other guys. Jose Bersenio is a good hitter, has really good power. Max Clark, really good hitter, but is he the elite defender he was billed as? Is he elite on the bases like he was billed as? How much power does he hit for at the major league level? Like, there are questions in Max Clark's game. Doesn't mean he's going to be a bust, but is he an all-star? Is he Corbin Carroll, or is he more of a Parker Meadows type? Like, these are the problems with prospects. You just never quite know until they get there, or in some cases, a couple years after they get there. But I think McGonigal will be there soon and will be the best of the bunch.
Are there guys you're certain they move on from? Parker Meadows is an interesting case, right? He's just, we've seen him just invigorate that team at some point. And there are moments where you just think, boy, that guy, you just seen it. And so you want to trust it. And then he'll go through stretches where it just doesn't look like a major league hitter. I'm wondering what you think they do with him. Is there anybody you're sure they move on from?
Not really. I think I don't envy those decisions, and that in some ways there's some guys who are a big part of things this year that if you're really trying to get to the next level might not be a big part of things next year. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to trade them or DFA them. Again, controllable players with some upside. It's hard to just move on from those guys. Now, those who have options remaining and can go to Toledo, that might become a more real factor for some of these players. But I don't know. Yeah, I think it's hard decisions about guys like Parker Meadows and Winslow Perez and maybe even Colt Keith to a degree. Jake Rogers is your backup catcher. He's due to make $4 or $5 million. Is that worth it for the leadership, the intangible stuff? Trey Sweeney, do you still have any faith in him? I don't know that it's hard to see them just outright like non-tendering players like this, but I also think it would be a mistake to just lock all of them back into the roles they had this year. And so that's why it's hard.
Of the free agents, who do you think has a realistic chance of coming back? Finnegan, Flaherty, Gleyber Torres, of course, and Rafael Montero, like anybody who's you think is coming back?
I think Finnegan would make a lot of sense. He seemed to like his time with the Tigers. They helped him unlock some things, get a little bit better. There wasn't a great market for him in free agency last season. The Tigers need more bullpen help, so Kyle Finnegan would make a lot of sense to bring back. Flaherty will be an interesting case. He has a player option. I don't know if he'll accept it. If he declines it, it's $20 million. The qualifying offer is $22 million. So let's say he declines the $20 million player option. Do the Tigers then extend him the $22 million qualifying offer, or would they rather just move on? That's a hard call. Gleyber Torres, wasn't great down the stretch. We learned he was playing through a hernia. Still gives you a really good quality at bat. He's not a great defender, but I don't think he's going to get the $100 million he once wanted. If you could get him on another 1 or 2 year deal, would that even make more sense than coughing up 5 or 6 years for Alex Bregman, who's going to be a year older? Those are real questions. So I don't think you could rule out re-upping with Gleyber Torres. But in terms of a guy who makes sense, and I think it would be easy, and there's really no other moving pieces, it's Kyle Finnegan.
So the $400 million question obviously is what happens with Skubal between now and the end of next year. And I'm sure if you knew 100%, you'd be the greatest prognosticator in baseball writing history. But what is your sense of what they're thinking right now?
Well, it sure seems like they're open to everything, including a trade. Scott Harris had a chance to shut down a winter of speculation about will they trade Tarik Skubal, and he did not do that. He gave a blanket, basically, I'm not going to comment on that whole situation, which to me felt like his way of saying, hey, we're going to see what happens, and we're going to listen to offers. I think it's going to be really hard for them to re-sign Tarek Skubal. I keep saying this. I've been saying it. They could offer him $1 billion. And Scott Boras might say, hey, that's great. We're still going to wait. We're going to take this to free agency. We're going to see if the Yankees or Dodgers want to offer $1.1 billion. You know, I just the idea of re-signing him long term, or at least getting that done before he hits free agency, seems incredibly slim. And so then I really think the Tigers have to pick a lane, which is either get a little more aggressive about building up a roster around Tarek Skubal next season, or you have to look long and hard at trading him. They're not going to trade him for nothing. It would have to be a sizable package of talent, perhaps some major league ready talent. But I think it seems like that's way more on the table than maybe people first thought, or maybe some people are willing to admit. But if they're not considering it, I think Scott Harris would have shut it down a little more than he did.
Leslie, what's your sense of like your optimism about the state of this club overall, the sustainability, the odds that they'll be that they'll take that step? And obviously, there are no guarantees in the postseason. A lot, you can have the greatest regular season, but that there'll be a team that looks more formidable entering the postseason, and that they are on track to be that for the next few years. What's your level of confidence in that?
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of complicated, because I look at 2026 and it's like, how are they? If they trade Skubal, they're going to take a step back, right? Or, okay, you have to add more pitching, even if you get Alex Bregman or whatever, a player of that caliber. How much better does that make you? I still fear next year they're going to run out of unless there's some really creative changes. They're going to run out a roster that's picked to win 83 games, and you hope it can win 88 games, which is kind of what it's been the last couple of years. And so then it gets easy to be negative about it, but then you take a step back and you think, well, how many organizations are really in a better position? Back-to-back playoff appearances, a top-5 farm system, a lot of young talent on the major league roster, a lot of payroll flexibility. There are not that many, other than the Dodgers or maybe a couple other payroll behemoths. There are not many teams you'd rather want to be than the Tigers. They do have all the markers of being set up for success for the next 5 years at least. But you do have to get some hard decisions right to avoid taking a step backward. The Baltimore Orioles are the perfect example that young talent and a young core doesn't always translate to the sustainable linear success you think it is going to. So that's a long way of saying, like, they're in a pretty good position, but there's still a lot of things coming they have to get right.
Do you think that you talk about those payroll behemoths? I mean, I don't know that the Tigers will ever be that, but they're not a small market club, and sometimes I wonder if anybody's explained that to Chris Ilitch. Like, this is still Detroit. It's still a top 15 market. It used to be a top 10. It's a big, do you think they will financially do what's necessary when the opportunities are there?
I don't know, because since I've covered the team, it's always kind of been, well, they'll spend when the time is right. And I think in some ways they signed Javi Baez and Eduardo Rodriguez. They were not afraid to spend before the 2022 season. Javi Baez just ended up being a terrible contract, and Eduardo Rodriguez, you got 2 pretty good years out of it. They made an offer to Alex Bregman last year, but they didn't up the AAV. They didn't get the deal done. So they've spent, but they haven't acted like the Dodgers. Does that mean they're being cheap? I don't quite think so. But is there a deeper level of aggression when you have back-to-back playoff appearances, when it appears you're not that far away from being a World Series caliber team? I'd like to think they're at the point now where they have to get a little bit more aggressive, spend a little bit more. But we haven't quite seen that yet, and that goes beyond Chris Ilitch. Is Scott Harris a fan of spending? Is he? I don't think he's a fan of long-term contracts, because that comes with inherent risk. So, like everything else, like it's kind of a complicated question to answer.
Well, I don't think anybody's going to leave this interview feeling better than they were when they started. But your insight, Cody, is always very much appreciated, man. So is your work on The Athletic, and I hope you get a few weeks and months off here.
Yeah, I think we'll have some clarity as this winter goes along. Like, I do want to reiterate, like, there's a pretty healthy organization. Scott Harris gets a lot of heat, but he's done a lot of good in 3 years. But like I said, like the decisions coming and what it takes to get from good to great is probably the hardest step for any organization in pro sports, and that's kind of where the Tigers are right now.
Appreciate you, man. We'll talk soon. Thanks so much.
All right, appreciate it.
That's Cody Stavenhagen from The Athletic.
Jesus.
Great work. You depressed?
Yeah. That was depressing as shit, man. Made the playoffs back-to-back years, and I hate this team with a passion. How about no more Scott Harris and AJ Hinch pressers? We're good. We'll see you guys in April.
I listened to the whole thing.
You did?
I did.
Jesus.
Yeah. It was I wasn't,
Harris is like you. He just like, if he doesn't have an answer, he'll just talk, and then you just go, oh, what was he talking? I forgot what we were talking about.
It doesn't need to be a spin zone thing for him.
Dude, he's got the spin zone.
Here's the thing about Harris. The reason I listened to the whole thing is the things I was reading on Twitter and the clips I was seeing, I would see comments underneath that would say like, this really misses context. This is what he was asked, and this is what he was saying. And I felt like I wasn't getting the whole picture from just the snippets, which often happens, right? There should be certain things where, like, you're not allowed to tweet this. You're not allowed to, because we can't get the full context. And I would urge people to listen to the whole thing. It's. I think
Did
it's
anyone ask Scott Harris? I watched the Dodgers last night. How in the hell would we compete with a team like the Dodgers?
That was not the question that was asked.
No.
Yeah. Well,
I would like it. I'd like an honest answer from both of AJ and Scott Harris of when you watch the Dodgers. I know you guys are busy, you probably haven't, but now that you're off and you can watch games, when you watch the Dodgers, how far away are we from the Dodgers? Let alone Seattle.
Well, everybody is, payroll a long way from the Dodgers. But that doesn't matter. The Dodgers, in a lot of ways, are unless they win a World Series, wasting money.
I don't know, but just teams that pick up players before the trade deadline, and Suarez with Seattle. Like, I understand that, and I can appreciate.
Suarez didn't perform that well.
He did decent. I mean, he went a lot better than, he probably wouldn't leave as many runners in scoring position as our guys did. But I don't know. I can't. I've never been a part of a team that just absolutely kicks me in the dick and balls over and over again, and I'm like, I can't wait till next year. It's just like, my God.
And my problem with Riley Green and the Tigers hitters is I feel like there's a lot of
he strikes out
upgrade of Javi Baez, right? It's like, Baez. First of all, I'll say this about Baez and what he was in the postseason. I sometimes forget how good he is in big moments.
Sure. And
so whatever the Tigers do, and his contract's going to keep him on the roster. Just make sure he's on the roster in the playoffs, because that is a guy you want. In game 82 in the 7th inning when he's bored, I'm not sure I want Javi Baez at the plate. But in game 170, I want him at the plate.
But I don't think comparing Riley Green to Javi Baez is really fair. I mean, the guy's an all-star, and you look at other than the strikeouts.
The strikeouts are brutal,
right? But he had 155 hits, 36 home runs, and 111 RBIs.
That's fair.
A terrible, terrible lineup, consistently surrounded by garbage. I don't know if you put anything around Riley Green, maybe he changes his strikeout rate. I don't know that, but you can't get rid of a guy who's homegrown, a top 10 pick, who's actually producing. Great glove. I know his glove. The numbers are down for his glove in the outfield this year, but I mean, I just don't. It's going in the wrong direction if we're talking about getting rid of a Riley Green. Torque, you can talk me into. If Torque goes away now, I'm like, all right, man. All right, Torque, good luck to you. We can stop airing those Cure Auto fucking commercials now. But I just don't get back, and listen to Cody say, I don't know if there's going to be any changes. Like, I just can't believe looking at that lineup, the futility of the bats, like, to go, I don't know if we need to do anything next year. Let's run it back with McKinstry, or especially if Bregman's sitting out there and he's opting out of his Red Sox contract. I mean, you got to make something happen for next year. And as far as Skubal, I don't know if this is a Scott Boras thing. I mean, there was speculation whether or not Boras had something to do with having Skubal come out of the game when he did, because we know that he could pitch way longer than that. And if you're going to sit there and ask for a contract as bizarre and insane as Boras is going to ask for Skubal, I don't mind letting Skubal go. If we can get some sort of trade for him before the season, I just think if we sit there and roll the dice with him for this next year because he's under contract, are you going to be able to trade him for anything at the deadline unless you have some sort of sign and trade with another team?
Yeah,
what team is going to want to trade you a bunch of assets if they don't have the agreement with Skubal?
Yeah, you got to go out and get pitching. I mean, it's nice to have Skubal, but like
it is. But I mean, beginning of the season, midway through the season, I'm like, we got to pay Skubal. You got to pay Skubal. And now I'm watching the pitch count. If he was a horse and went into the 8th inning and right? And made
he's
120
he's a
pitches,
top guy.
130 pitches. I'd go, let's pay this dude. I want to see this guy every 5 starts. But these guys get pulled after 6 innings, and if you're going to sit there and do that, if it's your client and that's what you have with, I would wish that there was more transparency with what's going on with this organization. That's the problem I have with Scott Harris. I just think there's a lot of things that are hidden, and we're not being realistic and talking about things transparent.
And you need to explain stuff. Like in some ways, this will be a transparent winter. What they do will say a lot, but also what you're thinking coming out, like whatever he addresses people coming into the spring or winter meetings or whatever it is after they made a number of moves, like really explaining what. I mean, I think people will get behind a couple different roads with Skubal. Like if he says, I don't know if we're going to be able to re-sign him, but we're going to try and win a World Series next year, and I think our best chance to do that is with this guy on the roster, and so we're going to make moves around him, and that's what we're going to do. I think people will go, okay. And then I also think if he says,
but they didn't do that this season.
Well, that's
the
problem.
They should have made some move.
And I think if he says, after he trades him, this is we there may be things we're not as strong at pitching. We think we can be a stronger team overall, and overall we needed to get something for him because this was a good offer, and we're not going to keep him. Then I think people are cool with that too. We just need to see and explain it. And I think the other big problem is the final question. I think there's just a lack of trust with whether they're going to spend when they need to spend. I think that's a real problem. And
what do you mean they spent on Javi Baez and Rodriguez?
Yeah, and I know they went after.
I love Cody, but those aren't two things that
Well, I think that the thing that stands out to me, and I was trying to look, I couldn't remember who the player was, but now I do. Was it Jonathan Scoop or Shoop was his name?
Yeah.
So years ago, he had one decent year, and they re-signed him for a 2-year, $15 million deal, and there was all this. I remember the interview done by which back then was probably Fox Sports, and they're interviewing him in the dugout, and they're just talking about how great it is that Ilitch allowed them to do this. It was like a $15 million contract, and I was like, if that's dear leader here is going to allow $15 million, okay, that's a problem. Clearly they felt like they needed to thank him and praise him for this really ordinary contract for an ordinary player, and it drove me nuts. And that was a moment where I go, hey.
Especially at a time when there was no light at the end of the tunnel. At least last year, you made this miraculous turnaround. But it's just amazing what the Tigers put the fan base through in 2025. And then to end it with a 15-inning thriller where you constantly can't get a runner in. That's been our problem that's plagued us all season long.
And you just knew it. You just knew they were going to run out of pitchers before the Mariners
run out of pitchers. I'm just there's nobody that's going to drive a run in. There's not we need the runner on second base. We need that rule to come back.
Or we need the Mariners to pitch Tommy Kahnle. One of the two. That's the that was what
Finnegan. All right, he had a good.
So you're in Denver. Where did you got to watch the Tigers? You got to watch the Lions. You got to watch Michigan State. Everything.
I did watch all 3 of those. Okay. Like I said, we did stay with a friend of ours that officiated our wedding, so I did get to. I told her I had to watch. She doesn't like sport. Doesn't really watch sports, so I had her. She had a nice big TV, thank God, and I could just I had all of the. Can I give you a story kind of worth telling?
Absolutely.
At dinner that we went to dinner last night because we had to travel. Yesterday morning, but we went to dinner the other night with a friend of Teresa who she works with, right? So we went to this nice, a little fancier restaurant than I'm used to. So the hostess greets us and says right this way and sits us down. And she said, I forget the server's name, but it's like, Deborah will be your server. By the way, she looks a little like JonBenet Ramsey. And then walks away.
What?
Yeah. And I was like, so we all 3 of us looked at each other and we're like, didn't she die? Didn't JonBenet die when she was 5 years old? It's such a weird thing to say your server.
And did she?
A little. I mean, she was in her 60s, though.
She
was late 50s, 60s. And I'm like, yeah, she's blonde, short. But yeah, I don't know if she looks like a 5-year-old. So anyway, I just thought that stunned the table. We all were looking at each other.
You do have to project a lot with somebody who only lived to be 5, right? It's not really, that's a strange place to be.
I mean, have you ever heard? I thought it was on one of those undercover prank shows, like the Impractical Jokers or something like that, where they just come up with, I'm going to say this and see if anybody reacts. And I've never heard anybody. Oh yeah, she looks like JonBenet Ramsey. You're going to enjoy her.
Did you guys then mention that to her? Hey, you look like JonBenet Ramsey.
No, because it's too awkward.
Yeah,
you can't sit there. I didn't know if it was a bit this lady was doing.
That's
also when we stayed at our friend's house, Kristen, she did order us pizza. Okay, it was very nice of her. But they have this thing in Denver. It's called Take and Bake Pizza. She lives in Castle Rock, Colorado. Take and Bake Pizza is they deliver you a pizza that's not cooked yet.
Correct.
We could not, Teresa and I could not figure out, you know me, so I had to do a whole 15-minute. I'm like, please explain to me how you want someone to deliver. The delivery guy came, and it was uncooked pizza and uncooked garlic knots, and it was like, there you go. So then we had to put it in the oven, and I'm like, well, what's the benefit of this?
It's maybe fresher when you want it, or you don't get it.
Fresher? They have the best ovens at pizza places. What am I going to do with my $100 oven that,
That's
you
a good
can't
question.
do with the pizza? I couldn't wrap my head. That and the John Bonet comment, I'm like, what? We were trying to figure out what was crazier because I do not understand. I want pizza when I order a pizza.
Well, that's the thing.
For them to deliver it and it's warm, I open up the box, the game's on, yay. I don't want to have to sit there because she timed it out to when the delivery was going to happen, so she preheated her oven.
Yeah, it's like if Muskox delivered you a yarn and said, "Here you go."
It's a little bit of a stretch, but it makes sense. I get it.
Yeah. You wouldn't do it. Or
on Amazon, I'm like, oh, here's a ball of yarn. I'm going to knit us a.
Or Xfinity gave you a wire and said, make home internet work for you. Figure it out. It wouldn't be the way to go.
Those were the two things, and she was so nice and gracious to let us stay at her place and stuff. So,
I think the idea is you don't have to eat it right. Like they deliver during the day, and that night you make it.
But how do you think that far ahead?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, what do you want to eat tonight? I don't know, pizza? Call it. I just feel like it's a terrible business plan. If you were sitting there pitching it to Shark Tank, they would probably kick you out within half a second or something, is all I'm saying.
That is a story we're telling, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company in downtown Lansing. And Midtown Brewing Company has hot meals. They do not make you cook it yourself. The chef there is fantastic. If you go to Midtown Brewing Company, you don't have to operate the oven. They will bring you. They have comfort food. They have lighter dishes. Took my mom there for a birthday celebration with my wife. Enjoyed the heck out of it. Yeah, it's a great place for events. Midtown Brewing Company in downtown Lansing, and trivia on Tuesday nights. Just a good place for an American stout beer to post up, watch a game.
So what do you get Mom for birthday?
Oh, I just get her flowers and a card.
Oh.
I try to get the same, like. She really likes this one card that if I find it, it's hard to find. It's a musical card of the Peanuts theme, like the Charlie Brown Peanuts theme that plays that, and she likes it. Because years ago,
Peanuts.
I bought it for her, and she took a video of herself dancing to the thing. She loved it. And so now it became kind of a gag gift. They're harder to find. It was like a real fad with musical cards. And I'll run into one once in a while, and so I try to find that. I try to put some effort into it, and then otherwise I just get her.
Does she have an old card that you could maybe just reuse if you just?
Well, she has a couple that still work. That have good batteries, and but that's I just usually get her flowers, and we've done some special stuff like her 70th. We took her on this river cruise dinner thing in Chicago. We've done some fun stuff on. When you hit
nice.
certain years.
When you get up to certain years, you get excited about a card that sings a song to you.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean,
Getting old is awesome.
Yeah, that's what you have to look forward to.
Oh man,
it's absolutely incredible. Another story presented.
Are we going to talk about the Lions before we get out of here?
100%. All right, let's go there.
Jared Goff.
Depressing.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
Brian Branch. I love Brian Branch, but man, dude, you got to be smarter than that. And Dan Campbell came out and defended him a little bit in his presser and an interview on 97.1 this morning. And I love Brian Branch. I get that Juju Smith-Schuster is a complete penis, but he's the guy that's going to try to get you to do what you did. And that's the bummer. I don't mind going into Kansas City and losing a tough game like that. It's hard to beat Kansas City and the refs. I don't want to... because the refs were a part of it. I understand you can't blame the whole loss on it, but it just pisses me off that over and over again as a Lions fan, in my 47 years of being a Detroit Lions fan, you just see all of this crazy shit that announcers don't know. I've never seen that in my career. They always say that kind of stuff, and to call a penalty because New York called it down when they're not supposed to. It's supposed to be those refs on the field. I'm talking about the Goff, the first touchdown play. By the way, some guy had would have won $100,000 if the touchdown would have stood.
Oh, because a prop bet for Jared Goff.
Jared Goff, first touchdown.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about to catch a touchdown would have been? I don't know if that prop was out there.
I don't know. Touchdown. But either way, it would have hit. Anyway, so it's tough to get really angry and pissed off at a loss like that against Kansas City. Like I said, I just feel with Brian Branch getting, and I know he has a gripe with the refs because he feels like there's cheap shots all over the place. But now He's going to appeal it, but he's going to be suspended for a big game at home against Tampa when we needed him.
They lost that game when the Chiefs lost to the Jaguars the week before. I felt like there was not going to be calls against the Chiefs. The Chiefs couldn't go to 2-4, and it was
They had one penalty, right? It was at the end of the game. I mean, that's insanity to go a full football game like that.
And especially in a sport where you can call holding on pretty much every play. It wasn't a game the Lions needed. The Branch thing is, you know how I feel about this. As long as they're able to beat the Buccaneers, which is no sure thing, but it's a home Monday Night Football game, then I prefer that defensive backs are out because they have less of a chance to get hurt when they miss the game. So I would like him to be suspended more often and more players suspended.
Yeah, but not against Tampa, though.
Yeah, I know.
I know your hacky bit. I get it, but it's just
would have been better against the Vikings a couple weeks later after a bye. Other guys healthy.
There's no way you're going to get away, especially in a standalone game. On a Sunday Night Football environment like that, you're going to have them throw it back to the studio. They're going to be like, I can't believe Brian Branch, and it's going to become a storyline. Whereas if the game were at 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I don't know if it would have got as much hype as it did. But I just got to be. I mean, I love Brian Branch, obviously, and I love that mentality of like everybody, give the middle finger, give the bird. But you still have to be a little bit smarter than that.
And look, it's better that he did this now than wild card weekend and he missed the next week or something like that. But
hopefully we get that figured out by then.
Yeah, it was not good. It was weird. It was one of those games where it was not.
And not having Taylor Decker. I mean, we got to get him healthy as well. It's just
but I didn't leave the game like disheartened, disappointed. It was one of those losses where, and Michigan State should aspire to get to this point. Where you lose a game and you're like, they're 4-2, but they're fine, and that's the difference in the NFL because there's a playoffs at the end that are different than college, and you don't have you just got to win like 10-11 games and not like I guess that's what you got to do in college too. But there are more games to lose. You can lose 5, 6, 7 games and still make the NFL playoffs. But it did not feel like a game where I left with any concern. I just thought, get this team. I still see some things offensively. They weirdly didn't throw the ball enough. I didn't think it was just,
Goff did not have a single pass attempt over 20 yards. And people want to complain about the going for it on 4th down, but again, it's like it was a good play. Amon-Ra dropped that pass.
That changes the whole game.
Which he never does. So, I mean, you look at that and go, okay, Amon-Ra does not drop those, so here we go. That's our loss.
It's not like this is a guy this is a problem. That's not a problem. It happened in a game. It sucks. Everybody does it occasionally, but I would count on him to make that catch 9 out of 10 times.
But if Decker is, if he's out again against Tampa Bay, I mean, there's a reason why Goff isn't throwing over 20 yards because they don't have enough time. Goff isn't fast enough on his feet to make plays like that. So
Tampa's out some guys. I mean,
I know. There's injuries everywhere. I understand that. That's what I think. The Lions are still a 4.5 point favorite at home. So
the worst thing about a Monday night game is it doesn't fit our time slot for our Monday show. But we'll still do a Monday show next week. We're telling you, we're not gonna bail on the Monday show
unless something happens.
You never know. I would say it's 50-50. No, we will plan to be there. We will also plan to do a Friday show.
Yes,
and answer your Groovy Donut Twitter questions. If you had a question last week that you really like, and I'll phrase this somehow in the call out for them, just let me know, and because I've already gone through them all, and I can grab that. Now, if you just want to amend it, resend it, that's fine because things have happened. But we'll ask for fresh ones as well, and we will do takes on Monday. So if you have a take, what I didn't want to do today, and I could just feel it, was we had a lot to get into. Is we do takes, it's going to be a lot of the same repetitive take, and there are a lot of things to talk about. So I didn't want to do takes. We apologize for missing the Monday show.
Yeah,
but we'll be back Friday. We will do Groovy Donut questions, it's
hopefully
good to be
something good happens between now and Friday.
Absolutely, something has to happen.
Max Bola, new head coach at Michigan State.
There you go. We appreciate all of you listening. We appreciate you hanging with us when we take mid-fall vacations and have studio gaffes and all that good stuff. We appreciate Cody for coming on and sharing his Tigers knowledge, no matter how it makes us feel, and Zach with what Indiana football is that Michigan State's about to face. We appreciate, of course, our friends at Xfinity, Midtown Brewing Company, and, of course, Muskox Quality Flannels. Go Muskox. And the promo code is Peacock for $15 off. Don't forget, Couch in the Rube on the hashtag Muskox. Couch in the Rube Muskox, or just DM me. Ugliest photo, best photo of you, and we'll see who wins that contest by the end of the week. Good show, man.
Yeah, man.
Couch in the Rube.